Whatever possessed me to get another one of this figure? Here's your look at the NECA Toys, A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, Reissue Freddy Krueger. It's been 5 years since Freddy Krueger tormented those helpless Elm Street teens with his razor glove and maniacal sense of humor. But he's back for revenge, with his sights set on another innocent victim he can torture and possess. Aw, poor Freddy Krueger doesn't have any body. Yet. Before we get a closer look at the NECA Toys, A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, Freddy Krueger, let's grab the old tape measure to see how tall the figure stands. Now, I did recently find this one, over on Entertainment Earth's website. It was hot off the truck to ensure that this was brand new stock and not the stuff that was sitting around on shelves. If you guys are interested, I keep interrupting myself. If you guys are interested, you can click the link down below. It'll take you on over to the website and you can order this guy, providing he is still in stock. In the meantime, Freddy Krueger stands 7 inches in height, or the figure is going to be about 17.5 centimeters tall. Taking a quick intermission to grab myself a throat lozenge, let's bring in some of the other figures for comparisons. Now, obviously, if we are going to be looking at the reissue Freddy Krueger here, it'd probably make the most sense to bring in the original Freddy's Revenge Freddy Krueger. And you can see, hopefully you can see if you have your eyes open, that there are some considerable changes that have been made between this initial figure and the figure that we're about to have a look at. We're going to get down to the details of all of those things in a moment. I did also, while still speaking of the topic of reissues, wanted to bring in the less successful reissue. This was Dream Warriors Freddy Krueger. And one of the things I really had the issue with, I did like the coloring of his sweater, but I thought the wash that they added to his face and his hand was way too much. And still sticking with intermissions, I did want to take an intermission away from the accessories for this figure just for a second to bring in the boxes that came included with this. This would have been the original Freddy's Revenge Freddy Krueger box. This would have been then the new box. They haven't done anything differently, at least from the cover standpoint. Maybe you could say that the reissue Freddy Krueger has a little bit more vibrant of a box. To show you as well the product codes I've been trying to do with all these reissue reviews. On the bottom, this was the original Freddy Krueger 966, get my finger out of the way, 966N081017. The reissue box, on the other hand, to help you as well, guide you in your way of getting one of these for yourself. The reissue was 966N112822. This was released last year, late last year, in fact. But again, like just to show you as well, like the back of the box is also as well. I don't think they've done anything different between the two. I could say maybe the brightness of Freddy's face is a little bit more vibrant here on the original one. A little more sharper, a little more cleaner, I think, here on the reissue box. But other than that, like the boxes are exactly the same. The product codes, though, will, like I said, be the thing that helps you find this figure in the wild if you're interested to get the reissue for yourself. No longer waiting. Let's get down to looking at the accessories that come included with Freddy's Revenge Freddy. I'm going to do my best to also bring in the original accessories that would have came for the first Freddy release, although unfortunately some of them have gone missing, so I'm going to do my best to kind of bring in the ones at least that I have. First, the figure comes included with a flame attachment that he sees on the back, or we see at the end of the movie when he's at the barbecue party. Breaking, of course, the whole rule of the idea that Freddy can exist in the real world and that everybody be able to still see him while still awake. At least it was a fun thing to see Freddy Krueger walking around, and while you realize then right away that Freddy is a very small character. He's not as big as maybe some would believe. The flame attachment is one thing I think they've improved upon when it comes to this figure, just to bring in the original one so you can see how faded and washed out the colors are against the more vibrant one that we get here with this release. The oranges not only are handled a lot brighter, you can see as well, like the yellows are such more vibrant than the more, again, washed out, faded colors that we got with the original flame. I don't think they've done anything different when it comes to the magnets, although in this case, it looks like they've actually taken the plastic away from the end of the magnet, maybe to get a more direct contact, because one of the issues when it came to this original attachment for the flame is it didn't seem to hold well enough onto Freddy's torso. Maybe what they did was they removed the plastic a little bit away from the back of it, so it would actually attach, providing you can get Freddy here, it would attach to his body a lot better. And in this case, while maybe not surviving the blizzard test, it certainly will survive on your shelf. If you put this on the shelf, Freddy doesn't look like he's going to be dropping his flame anytime soon. Just to show you as well, if we take the original flame that had the plastic covered over the top of it, it stayed on there, but I don't feel like it stayed on as well as the one that we're getting right now. I feel like this is not only a better, brighter colored flame, but it also seems to attach a lot more securely. So the figure comes included with that. Let's just put the figure down here for 1 second. One thing, unfortunately, I have missing here from my original Freddy Krueger is the fedora. I have this guy on display as of right now, and I don't know if maybe perhaps my daughter had gotten down to have a look at my Freddy collection, decided to take the fedora for herself. I'm sure somewhere there's probably a tiny little Barbie doll that's walking around with Freddy's fedora. Anyways, the fedora is molded here in a softer plastic. This specific fedora is a little more squished, and then, of course, in later movies, it gets a little bit fuller than what we get right here. But it's more rattier, taggier, raggier. Raggier word? Raggedy? Raggedy, I think is the word I was looking for. Fedora. It does fit onto Freddy's head just as well as it did before. If I flip this around, making sure I've got it facing the right way. There we go. And it fits down on his head. Whenever I think of Freddy's Revenge Freddy, I always tend to think of Freddy without the fedora, because I think we actually get more of him without the fedora than we actually do with. But like I said, the fedora does fit it onto his head. It fits on pretty securely as well, so unlike the flame, you can at least tilt this upside down, and the fedora is not going to fall off his head. Like I said, the whereabouts of the original fedora, unknown. No idea where it went. The figure also comes included with his hand, the hand that has the blades, of course, when he's sticking out, he's got the blades sticking out at the ends of his fingers. That, at least, I still have, just to bring in the original one here so you can see the difference between the two. Now, one thing I will say, though, consistently across this review, and you probably hear me saying this a couple of times, is I think that the color is handled better with the reissue, but the details seem a little bit more refined on the original one. Like, for example, I like the colors on the reissue. You get a much more brighter flesh tone here. But if you want really the more charred, scarred look of Freddy's skin, I think the original one maybe did do it a little bit better. In some of the cases, like the head, for example, the head, we're going to talk a lot more about that in a moment. I feel like the head maybe has too much of a wash on the original release, and maybe not enough of it on the reissue. Again, you'll see what I mean in a second. Just as a side note, though, these finger blades, the little spikes, the little, of course, blades he's got sticking out the ends of his fingers, seems to be of a better plastic, I've noticed on the newer one. I don't think they've changed the plastics, but it seems like the plastic has a lot less wiggle to it, whereas these ones were a lot easier to bend. Those are the differences, of course, between these two versions of hands. And of course, yeah, you can change this hand out to the gloved hand if that's the look you prefer instead. Speaking of the gloved hand, let's just show you the one that's already attached onto the end of Freddy's forearm. And for this, of course, I'm going to then reach off to the side and bring in the original Freddy Krueger just to show you the difference between the two gloves. The gloves in this case, I might give it to the original one for handling it better. You get dark brown for the majority of the glove here for the reissue, and while I do think the blades, I keep wanting to call them spikes, while he does have little finger blades, I think painted better on this hand, I do think like the glove is painted overall better on the original Freddy Krueger. You get a more separation of the lighter colors that make up the plates on the top. Also as well, the little finger plates seem to be colored differently than the glove itself, whereas this one unfortunately just has sort of a consistent of, it's all kind of the same brown. I mean, if you look really close at it, you can kind of see like the coloring of his glove is a little bit different than he actually has for the fingers on the tops of it. And while sticklers to detail may probably be able to look at this in the movie and say, well, he actually does have darker finger caps on the ends of his glove, that it looks a little bit more accurate. I actually kind of like the color of the copper a little bit more on the original release than what we get here with the newer one. Of course, if you are interested to change the hands out, the hands are pretty easy. Just going to go ahead and wiggle the hand, just pop the hand off the peg. And then if you want to replace it with the skin hand, you can do that also as well. For a long time, I actually had Freddy Krueger with, I think, let me just reach off to the side here. Yeah, I had it with this head for a while. And then I just recently then changed it to this head sculpt, which will be kind of more the topic of interest. I think that's the one thing that really people want to know a little bit more about when it came to the reissue. Because a lot of people have mentioned the fact that this one does have the side eye. The original one does have also still the side eye, but I don't think it's as extreme as what we get here with the reissue. Before we get down to actually talking about that, put the figure down once again. Of course, the figure does also come included with the demon dogs. Now, demon dogs I still happily still have in my collection. I'm all tongue-tied here, showing you guys the difference between the two devil dogs. This is the one that does have the open mouth. Again, I like the skin tone better on the new devil dog, but I think the details are a little clearer, and you can actually make out there's a little bit more stuff going on here, I feel, with the paint on the original devil dog. Like the skin tone better on this one, like that the details are a little bit more standout. They're a little sharper, I feel, on the original devil dog. Just to show you the difference between the two, the demon dogs. The demon dog fur, at least, is lighter here in the original release. and a little bit more darker here on the newer release. The colors seem to be the exact same. Of course, they are sharing the exact same bodies to one another. I think this is also the same dog that they used also for the Alien accessory pack. Of course, it didn't have a demon face to the front of it. There is articulation on this, and in fact, there's actually articulation on this one and as well the other demon dog, which is this one right here. There's no articulation here any for the body. The body itself is just all molded plastic. But the head, at least, is on a ball joint, so you can move it up and down, and you can also move it back and forth. That's demon dog number 1, the one that has the mouth open. Again, there's the one that also has all the skin lesions and all the other just weird things going on with its face. It's a hard thing to kind of look at, I find at least. But there's also this version as well. And just to show you the difference between this one and the original demon dog, you can certainly let me know down below in the comments section which demon dog you prefer. And again, while I do like that the features seem sharper on the original one, I like the color scheme a lot more on the newer demon dogs. Do you disagree with me or agree with me? Let me know down below. Anyways, those are the demon dogs. I'm going to put those down here for a second. Of course, Freddy Krueger then comes included with some swappable head sculpts. He does come included with 3. He has the one that has the exposed brain, which unfortunately is the one that I have missing right now, so I can't show you what the original one looked like. But just to show you the details on this one, I like this one a lot. It's a lighter color of skin tone, and I still think you're able to make out the features a little easier here on this face because it doesn't seem as washed out or saturated in black wash. I don't have this one, so I can't unfortunately show you the original one compared to this one. And then there's also this version of Freddy, which I always consider this to be the Freddy that just before his face starts to melt. I really would have loved if they could have included a 4th head sculpt. I know we're asking a lot. If they included at least a 4th head sculpt that would have actually had the start of his melting face to bring in the original one so you can see the difference between the two. This is exactly what I'm kind of talking about here. I feel like the skin tone is better on the newer one, but the features stand out, I think, a little bit better on the original one. So I'm really torn as to which one I actually like a little bit more. Again, like when it comes to his face and it comes to his mouth, the features stand out more on this one, especially his skin tone. But I think there's almost too much of a wash that's added over top of it that it just sort of cancels everything else. Whereas this one, at least, while maybe having a little too pale of a skin tone, you can at least make out his teeth. This one was a little harder to kind of make out. It actually made his mouth look more like it was open, whereas this one looks like its mouth is closed shut. And of course, the main default head sculpt that we already had a look at here that's on top of his body is, again, the one that has the most controversy. I don't want to say controversy, but it's the thing that people are talking about the most. I've noticed people on social media have been talking all about the newer Freddy having this side eye. Can you see that the side eye, you can see the pupils are way off to the side here. Now, it didn't just get created with the reissue. In fact, the original Freddy also had that as well. If you look at the eyes aren't in fact looking straight at you. They're slightly to the side. Although the reissue takes it to the extreme of having the eye pupils way off to the side. So actually, when you're looking at straight on, it looks for a second like they forgot to paint Freddy's eyes. They are there, but they're way off to the side. Now, I like that. I do like that the pupils are way off to the side instead of being dead center like that. Again, it's a little bit more centered, I feel, for the original release. And it's, again, way off to the side in the newer release. The skin tones are very different between the two figures. I feel, again, like this one probably could have used a little bit more details, like a little bit more contrasting colors, because it's all sort of the same color happening here. This Freddy had a lot better of a job doing it. And of course, they also did add more of a clear coat finish to it, so it made his skin look more wet. But I feel almost like there may be too much color happening here on Freddy's face, and maybe not enough of it here in the reissue. Suit-wise, at least for his sweaters, they seem very similar to one another. The colors for between the two, this one does have a little bit more colors of kind of like this additional darker green. You can see like a little bit of smeared to the side of Freddy's sweater. I feel like the stripes are a little easier to make out here on the newer release. But if you're looking at the exact same, I mean, if you look at the two figures, they are exactly the same. They haven't done anything different between the two. Slacks is also one thing. His pants are one thing that does change between the two releases. These now pants are actually more of a darker gray. The original pants that they would have given him were kind of a very light black. I mean, I guess a really, really dark gray. But you definitely can see the difference between the two. Like, this is a lot more of a dark, it's more of a gray than it is a black. This is kind of more of a black than it is a gray. The shoes are also one thing that does change between the two. The shoes were more of a medium brown here in the original release, and on the newer release, they're kind of more of a dark chestnut brown. So again, like, there are enough changes that you're not just picking up a figure and then seeing the exact same thing inside. I mean, there are definitely some real either upgrades or downgrades to paint, you can let me know down below in the comments section. I still feel like there's merits to the original release because, again, like the features I think stand out a little bit more. And again, if you like the more wet look to Freddy's face, this one does do it a lot better. But I feel like the features stand out a little bit more on the newer release. It just needs a little bit more paint, I feel, to the plastic. For the articulation here on Freddy Krueger, his head is going to be on a ball joint, so it rotates all the way around. By the way, just to show you what it looks like to change out the heads, let's go with, you know what, let's go with this head sculpt here. So we're just going to wiggle the head off the post. I also wanted to show you this in the review so you guys can see. It's pretty easy to change the heads. Pop the new head in place. Now, if you're having any tough time to get Freddy's head back onto the socket, you can also use a little bit of hot water. We're just going to pop that in place. Anyways, the head does rotate all the way around. You can have the head looking down, looking up, and you can also rock back and forth as well. I think if you want to go with the flame effect, this probably will be the better head sculpt, I feel, at least, to go with. And then from there, of course, you can also add the fedora to the top of his head. Just like that. For his arms do come out at a straight 90 degrees, a little less maybe than that. You can also take the arms and rotate them all the way around on both the sides. He has a single hinge only in the elbow, like the original one had before as well. You can wiggle, of course, the forearm back and forth. The hands rotate also all the way around. They're on ball joints after all. You can also hinge it back and forth. Upper torso is on a ball joint also as well. The legs do split the same way as the original one. They seem to be on ratcheted joints on the insides of the legs. You can bring the legs forward. You can bring the legs back. A swivel at the top of the thigh. A single hinge again only on the on the knee. But you can at least rotate the lower leg. Hinge the feet up and down. And you can also ankle rock them as well. You know, again, like, it's a hard thing to do, and I know there's a lot of collectors, myself included, that like to source out these reissue figures. It always seems to be sort of like a treasure hunt. As soon as you find out that a reissue is available, you try to check around online. Sites like Entertainment Earth are really the best thing for that, because hot off the truck, if you see a guy like this, hot off the truck, you know right away that they're stocking the new inventory of the figures and not releasing, or not having like old stock still on their site. If you then are to be going into the wild, let's just say you're checking around to Targets, you're checking around to Walmart, any place that sells NECA figures. Then, of course, product codes will always be the best thing to help. Look at the last digits. Those are always the telltale sign as to which figure you're actually picking up. But just again, like to show you the difference between the two, let's just move over the Demon Dogs here. The Demon Dogs have been in this review this whole time, and just to bring in the original Freddy Krueger. You know, again, I feel like there's changes that warrant at least picking this guy, even if you already have this one before. The colors, some could argue, are a little bit off. Like, I don't think the pants are maybe as gray as this in the movie, but I think I actually like the contrast of the gray against the striping of the sweater. I also like as well the way that the skin tone makes the features pop, I think, on Freddy's face. Even though I do think there's a better contrast on the original release, I do think, like, his mouth, his eyes stand a lot more on the newer figure. So it's entirely up to you. If you already have the first Freddy Krueger, you can certainly know by watching a review like this, for example, well, it's still worth to spend your budget, spend your well-earned dollars to get another Freddy if you already have the one before. I think yes, because there's enough changes, I think, to warrant getting this guy again. Some may disagree with me, though. And here in Fun Looks, we've got the Charred Child Killer. I prefer my Freddy well done, thank you. I've got the flame attachment attached on the back of his body, more secure this time around by removing that little layer of plastic that they had on the original one. They've done away with it altogether, which means you have a more direct contact between the magnet on the back of the flame and whatever's built into Freddy's torso. So not only do you have a more vibrant looking flame, but it holds on the back of Freddy's body a lot easier than the original one did before. Like replicating the look of that scene, You're All My Children Now, overlooking, of course, many of the rules that are broken in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, I've decided to have this guy displayed not only in Final Looks, but probably moving forward and putting this guy on my shelf, hoping that none of my pieces like the fedora is going to go missing again. But I'm going to choose to go with this head sculpt because I feel it fits the best for this scene. But of course, like the original one, Freddy has a couple of different heads to choose from. One that has the exposed brain. You've got the body, I've got the brains, and of course you've got the defaulted head sculpt. I was able to at least show you 2 of the 3 head sculpts. Apology for not having the 3rd one available. But hopefully in reviews like this, you guys could see the merits of maybe picking up this guy or just passing on him altogether. I feel at least still already mentioned that I think there's enough change to this guy for the better that he's worth still picking up, even if you already have the original one. Like this specific head sculpt that has the visible teeth, and again, more that sort of male witch head sculpt that they clearly wanted to go with for the design of Freddy in the second film. I think like this head sculpt is the best example of how well, just because they've gone with a paler skin for the plastic, how you get a better chance to see like his eyes, his teeth. Something that sort of got washed out, unfortunately, with the original one. just because of the amount of paints that they added over top of the plastic. Yes, in one way that the original one did do things better by giving Freddy more that wet, sweaty look, and he looked a little more scarred by the way they painted the plastic. But if you want a figure that has the details to stand out a little bit better, I honestly feel like the reissue does it nicer. You get a clearer looking face, an easier way to make out the features on his face than maybe what the original one did before. What do you guys think? Let me know down below in the comments section. Do you feel like this reissue Freddy does things better than the original one? And if it's a case where he does some things better, some things worse, what do you think he does better, and what do you think he does worse than the original Freddy? Let me know down below in the comment section. And of course, if you guys are interested to get this one for yourself, I did find this one, not in the wild, but I did find it over on Entertainment Earth's website. It's the best place I've been noticing as of late to get those reissue NECA figures. And I'm all about those reissues, as you've certainly seen for the amount of reviews that I've covered these. Again, with the hot off the truck option, it's the best way. Periodically, just go over to their website, check out hot off the truck, and see if there's any new NECA figures on there. If it has said, for example, hot off the truck as of within that month, even a couple of months, you'll know right away it's the restocked figures. It doesn't always mean that the paint's going to be changed. It doesn't always mean that the figure's for the better, but it does mean at least you're getting newer stock of it, rather than just finding old stock that a store still hasn't sold. If you guys enjoyed this video, I want to hit with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and on board to certainly see more, we may also be looking at some more reissue NECA figures. Somebody in the background is yelling. I can hear you, sir. You're quite loud. But if you guys are interested to check out more, certainly, first of all, hit this video with a like. But subscribe. That's the most crucial thing to ensure that you're not missing out on anything that's popping up here on the channel is, yes, to subscribe. Turning on also the bell notification will also help to know whenever new videos are popping up. And between those two, you'll always be in the know. You'll get that 411 whenever new stuff is being posted by the person behind the camera. That's me. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.